I believe I'm recording again. All right, cool. So today, we're going to be we're going to start doing a section on working with sellers. We've been talking a lot about working with buyers, but there are reasons for working with sellers. There's an old saying in real estate that you have to list to last in real estate. And most people don't argue with the idea that sellers are easier to work with than buyers. You can have a lot more sellers and still be sane than you can have active buyers. Having said that, however, 50% of all real estate transactions involve buyers. That, I believe, is a true statistic. 50% involve buyers as well. I've been doing research. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up what I pasted in. All right. And so we're going to go over a listing presentation that I've been upgrading. And this is sort of a folder filled with little nuggets of things from EXP, from me, from mostly, and some from the National Association of Realtors. What do you need before you go on a listing appointment? I put this together just as a starting point. You need to have a CMA. And for those of you that are new to this, CMA does not stand for the Country Music Awards. Right? It could, but not in this case. It's a competitive or comparative market analysis. And typically we use RPR. Now you can do RPR is the Realtors Property Resource. It's one of the more elegant programs for creating market analysis. You can do it in the MLS, and you can even do it through KV Core. Why then wouldn't you use the MLS or KV Core? Well, on one hand, RPR looks nicer. On the other hand, RPR oftentimes has other comps, and then sometimes they don't have them all. I know that sounds weird, but let's say that I'm running a CMA in Los Angeles, and an agent who listed a property from Santa Barbara County has a closed transaction. If I'm using the MLS, it probably won't show that property because Santa Barbara County and LA County are not friendly and they don't share data. So, and if I'm using KV Core, which I've got a video and it uses the IDX, which is the MLS feed for my MLS and some direct other MLSs. That is not Santa Barbara. It won't show up. But RPR, that transaction may show up because RPR is a member of most of the MLSs in California. And so, plus the transaction was recorded at the county recorder's office, and RPR can figure that out too. Occasionally, RPR does not have a listing that is really there, that really closed. So what I typically do is I run all of them, right? I would run the MLS, I would run RPR, and what I'm looking for are there properties that are in the MLS that are not in RPR. Most of the time, the answer is no, right? If the answer is no, that's great. I just go with RPR. Now, there are two numbers. At some point, you're going to have to, excuse me, you're going to have have determined, and have in your brain ready to speak before you go on a listing appointment. Number one, when the owner says, well, what price do you suggest I list my house at? All right. You need to know. You can't say, oh, I don't know. This is really hard, right? You're going to have to come up with something. And number two, when they say, well, what do you charge? How much is this going to cost me? you're going to need to be able to say, I charge 3%, 2.5%, 2, 1.5%, whatever it is. And you need to start having a conversation, and this is in the presentation. What happens if a buyer contacts you that doesn't have an agent and wants you to do all of their job as well? How much would you charge to work with an unrepresented buyer? Now, the third thing that you need, and that is either need to have prepared or prepared several examples or know how to do it, is a net sheet for the sellers and a cost analysis for buyers. This is connected to number one. Here, let me add something. What is it? And I have a list of questions, right? I'm not going to do all the what questions do you ask before you go on the listing appointment? We're going to go through a pre-listing package, and those questions I have in the document library, what's called a seller lead sheet, where it has these questions. But how much do you currently owe? Right? We would need to know that in order to do a net sheet. And if they know their interest rate, we would need to know that too. And the reason we need to know the interest rate is because it affects the seller's net. Because depending upon when escrow closes, there could be another month's worth of interest, which could be thousands of dollars, which would throw your net sheet off, right? So we also want to have an estimate based upon the price as to what it would cost a typical buyer to buy that house in terms of closing costs, down payment, that sort of thing, using, like, usually we would use an 80-20 loan, 20% down, 80% loan. If it's a property that is likely to go with FHA or VA, we would make adjustments. What would a typical buyer pay? You'll see that becomes important when we're having a conversation with the seller about concessions, because the seller only sees their numbers on the net sheet, and therefore they think that they're the only ones paying anything. Whereas if you could show them, look at the buyer's got, look at all these expenses, right? A property profile is something that you can kind of get from RPR. You can run it through most of the MLSs. There's usually a little button when you're looking at a listing that says TX, right, which doesn't stand for Texas, but means taxes. And if you click on it, it'll show you the tax assessor's page. Or you would get a property profile from a title or escrow company. How would you do that? You would meet a title rep and ask to be set up for free. They're going to set you up with an online program that you can type in an address or an APN number, and it'll give you what's called a property profile. This is connected in most MLSs already. A lot of the information is also in the RPR. What are we looking for on the property profile? A couple of things. We want to see the names of the people that the county assessor thinks own a house. I've been on appointments where there were either different names or additional names on the county recorder's profile than the person I was talking to. One of them, I remember asking this lady, who's this, right, at this other name. And she said, oh, that's my ex-husband. He passed away about 9 years ago. Now, as it turns out, the husband dying was simply wishful thinking on her part, that in fact he was not dead. And I listed 3 properties, sold 2 before the title company figured out that she had a husband that was still alive who had to be paid off, right? You understand, it brings up a question. Who are these people on the property profile, and do they match? The other thing that we want from the property profile is to see if what the tax assessor says in terms of bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage matches what you're seeing when you're at the house. Now, one of my questions, and there's a lead sheet, which I'll put into this folder, right? It's in the document library. If you Google search, you'd find them. I think EXP has a sample of what questions to ask. But one of the questions you want to ask before you go on a listing appointment is to ask the seller to describe their property. Don't think, oh, well, I'm going to be, I'm going to be slick and I'm going to look it up and I'm going to know and it's going to impress them. Too many times the agent has showed up with a CMA that does not represent the property that they're looking at. So why would the tax record say it's a 3.2, 1,300 square feet, and you show up and it's a 5.3, about 2,800 square feet? And the answer is because they did stuff usually without the benefit of permits. Right? So these are just things you want to know. I have a list of questions to ask before you show up. You want to look up when did they buy it. RPR will tell you that. The tax records will tell you that. What was their interest rate? How would you know that? Well, if you know that they bought it in 2020, let's say in 2014, and it was October, and you went to Google and you typed in what were home interest rates in 2014, October, it's going to tell you the answer, right? Historically, we could guess. So we want to know that. What is, and it might still be the interest rate that's on their loan, but it might not. You're going to want to have an idea of how much the property has appreciated since they bought it. A lot of this, by the way, is about, again, concessions. You're going to need to know what's happening with the market. Are there price reductions? Now, depending upon your MLS, this is easier to find out, right? Depending upon your MLS. So when I go to my MLS, which is MLS listings, and one of the, and this is definitely something you want to do before you show up. If you go to the Matrix dashboard, and I know some of you, yes, I know, I've read this. I've heard that there's a buyer representation agreement. Notice this little chart here that says Market Watch. Now I can customize it. So let's say it's a single family home and it's in San Jose. I really should turn that off. Otherwise it's just going to keep annoying me. But let's say it's a single family home and it's in San Jose. Now, what I can do if I simply put that in and I click on save, what this is now going to tell me is that in the last 7 days in the city of San Jose, there have been 2,415 new listings, but 3,213 changes are sold. Look at this, 1,465 price decreases. Doesn't that tell you something about what's going on in the San Jose market? People are having to decrease their price. There was 168 transactions that fell through for whatever reason. We have so many contingent and pending. Mostly I'm interested in new listings, sold listings, and price decreases. You want to know that stuff. Price reductions, inventory, days on market, CAR, California Association of Realtors, and RPR. So if you click on the first link, this is the California Association of Realtors website. It's called the Seller's Guide. You can, let's just stick with Los Angeles County for fun. If I knew which area, let's say Culver City, and I wanted usually if you're doing something in PowerPoint, you would pick the PNG. If you're going to do a full page, you would pick the PDF. But if I wanted to put this in PowerPoint, excuse me, this is a full page one. for Culver City. I don't know why did it not, am I missing something? Possibly, right? It's a full page one. That's weird. If I do the county, is it going to give me the full page? Yeah, it gives a full page. Well, anyhow, so this is something you're going to want to have with you, print out, take with you. My presentation, I'm going to modify it so it's also in the a different variety, so that it's 8.5 by 11 as well. But that's an easy way to get information about what's going on in the market. The other thing you're going to want to do is learn how to use RPR market trends. So what I also would do, and maybe this is where I was thinking of the version that fits a PowerPoint. It's been a while. So I go over here to research and I go to residential market trends and I type in San Diego, and I could pick either San Diego City or I could pick San Diego County. Let's just say I'm going to do the county. No, it doesn't do county. It only does cities and zip codes. So this is a snapshot. I can say, well, the appointment I'm going on is a single family. So I'm going to just change this to that. It gives me information about the market. It shows me what's happening with property values, new listings, way more information than I need. This one here about what's happening in the market is a very common one I would use. It shows that people are getting about what they're asking for when it sells. They may have lowered the price. It shows what the median days on market is. I go over here to share. I could get a variety of different ways of posting it, but if I create a PNG, JPEG, or just copy it, it goes into my clipboard and I can now paste that into a presentation. Don't overdo it, but you're going to need to know how's the market. And both of these programs can also do it down to zip code. I didn't put this in, but I also use Altos. And I'm going to go over here to market reports, and I'll paste it in the document just for fun. And Altos also, if I click on run a report, and I want to run houses, and let's say I want to run San Francisco, only cities and zip codes. I hit on it. This is probably the one I want. It wants me to log in, but I don't want to. Why didn't it give me more? I don't know. It wants a zip code, run report. All right, it wants me to admit that I have a Facebook account. So it's given me a market action index for the city of San Francisco. It's got more graphs and charts than I want. Sometimes I've taken this box here and did a screenshot and pasted it in my, my PowerPoint presentation. If I go over here to share, I can download this either as a full page or a single page report. If I download it as a full page report, I get multiple pages with all those graphs and charts. Now, you know, whether or not, and it's got Altos branding on it, but who cares? They're not a brokerage. Right? We also have a nice one-page, you know, thing. And you can put that in your package that you give to them. Sometimes real estate agents tell me nobody cares about this stuff. And my response is, you don't care about this stuff. But it's quite possible that the seller cares about statistics. Are they an engineer, for example? Right? If you're in Silicon Valley, I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that want to see graphs and charts and statistics. The other thing that I would do is run what's called a KV Core pitch sheet. And I don't know if I believe, I thought I'd included a link on how to do a KV Core pitch sheet. If you Google search how to do a KV Core pitch sheet, you're going to find hour-long videos. It doesn't take that long, right? So this is KV Core. There's two things that you can do in KV Core that would help you on a listing. One of them is called a pitch sheet, and the other one is KV Core has their own CMA presentation material. The reason I don't use it is because I'm afraid, like in the Bay Area and in the LA Orange County area in particular, we have multiple MLSs. And all of the data from all the MLSs isn't syndicated into KV Core, just your MLS and other MLSs you're directly connected to. But if I go to listings and I click on a manual listing, you can see I've done this as a demonstration before. And what you would do is you would know that I did a listing appointment on that one, but you would know the address of the property in advance. So what I did is I already knew, because I'd run the property profile, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, that sort of stuff. I didn't have a lot of pictures, but I knew this much information and I knew the address. Okay, so I manually added the listing in before the listing appointment. Why would I do that? I don't have a listing. I don't know if I'm going to have a listing, and I could have, if there had been more pictures, I could have taken it. But the reason I did this is because of this guy over here that says view pitch sheet. And when I click on this, what this pitch sheet is, it's going to show me KV Core is used by a whole lot of people, including a lot of EXP agents. So this is saying that EXP at the time that I did this, which was a while ago, had 3,770,000 buyers in the United States. 802,000 of them are in this price range. 154 are in the city of San Jose, where this property is located, and 113 of them are in San Jose and are looking for properties that are in this price range. 113. And notice it shows, this is kind of sort of what it would look like. So what this, and I would print this out. And so the purpose of this is I could say to the seller, I got 113 buyers right now, that may be interested in your property, and I can push a button and we're going to let them all know that it's for sale. How does that sound? Doesn't sound too bad. Also, I'm not going to spend time on this, but this is a 3-minute video on how to use KV Core to create a listing presentation. If you Google search, how do I create a listing presentation in KV Core, you're going to find hour-long videos. And more than hour-long videos, they go through every little piece of it, which I'm not going to do, but if you're interested. So that's all. That's it. That's all you have to do before you show up for the listing appointment. Easy peasy. What else have I given you? So PDFs. This is my updated listing presentation. What I would suggest that you do is don't ask me if you can edit it, because the answer is going to be no, because then, I'll have to go back to fix it. But if you go up and you click on add a shortcut, and the reason you want to add the shortcut is because there's a couple of slides I may be adding, and they would appear then on your shortcut. That shortcut would lead to my original, and when I make changes, it would be there. I'm just saying. And then you can make a copy for yourself to modify, right? The only things that I'm really planning on adding right now have to do with the team, and we're a great big team, and we're in the top 250 teams, and that's all really Wonderful. So I don't, I'm going to be adding that slide in, but some of you may be thinking you don't want it anyhow. And the idea, of course, is that you would put in your contact information here. Uh-huh. And there may be value in you saying you're part of a great big team and using the logo. If you don't want to use the logo, get rid of it. Don't get rid of EXP's logo. If you want to add your picture, right, you would simply add an image. You know, you just have way too many images, but you would find a picture of yourself. Here we go. And you could add it, right? So that your picture is here. If you want to keep my picture, you're welcome to do that. You can crop it, whatever you want to do, right? Why don't I crop it? So the idea is that you're going to modify this to make it work for you. But sometimes, oops, sometimes it's good to be part of a team, right? Sometimes it's good to. See how smooth I am at this? Okay, there we go. All right, anyhow, you can add a picture if you want, but you need your DRE number. You need the name of your broker, which that logo satisfies, and you can call yourself something, right? Whatever. So the fact that I put together this whole presentation doesn't necessarily mean you have to go through every slide every time you're on a listing appointment, right? Because sometimes they don't want to. And so my strategy at the beginning is to ask the sellers, what is your agenda? What do you want to learn today? What do you want to accomplish? What would make this a useful, a valuable use of your time? Now, I've actually, by the way, one of the questions that I ask people on the phone when I'm coming over to talk to them is just so I can understand where you're at in the process. Are you planning on listing your home tonight with me? And I've had people say, well, yeah, that's why I called you. I want you to come over and list my house. That's nice. Others are saying, oh, no, I don't know. We're interviewing about 6, agents and, you're in the middle and so on. Oh, cool. I just wanted to, just wonder. So sometimes they're all ready to list the home. They're not really there to hear a presentation. They don't want to hear a presentation. So I believe, and this is contrary to what a lot of people like me teach, which is rather than you telling them this is how it's going to go, which usually means I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and then I'm going to explain what I do to sell homes. And then I'm going to talk to you about what your property is worth. And if everything looks good, then we can close and work together. Right now, my philosophy is whatever they say is most important to them and they want to know, I would talk about that first. So if they're saying, well, tell me, what do you think our property's like? This is what's on our mind. We don't know. We've heard a lot of different numbers. We want to talk about that. I would do that first because they're not going to be happy if I say, oh yeah, that will be in about 45 minutes. Right? That doesn't make them happy, right? They want to do it first. Now, one of the things that I ask them is, what are your goals? And if they're saying, oh, well, people usually have 3 goals, one or all 3, 1, 2, or all 3. They're focused on price, they're focused on time, and they're focused on convenience. And these sort of work against each other. I can remember being on a listing appointment where the sellers had a decent house, walking distance to one of the best high schools in Santa Clara County, walking distance. And I'm walking through the house with them and they have piles of newspaper and boxes all throughout the house. since their kids had moved out, they had converted one of the bedrooms into a indoor sauna where there was a big plastic thing and you could sit there and, heat up. And I started to say, well, you realize that the buyer is going to, want the bedroom, and the guy said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not fixing anything. I'm not moving anything. I'm not cleaning anything. I'm not doing anything. I said, you realize that that may have an effect on the amount of money you end up getting. And he said, I don't care. I'm not doing anything. Cool. I can work with that. He's not going to do anything. Right? For him, the highest possible price wasn't as important as convenience. Right? He just didn't want to do anything. Great, fine, whatever. Right? So you kind of want to know what is their motivation. And I was going to add, it just occurred to me, I was going to add something about questions, which I have in my lead sheet, but I was going to put here as well. After I'm done, I'll add a couple of slides. So, it's just, but in my seller lead sheet, I ask them questions. What did you like about the house? Why did you buy the house? What motivated you? Because I want to know what they like about their house. Right. So this is just a general mission statement. It looks like I have a weird. Sorry, I can't help myself. All right. Anyway. I just converted it from PowerPoint. And so sometimes when I convert it from PowerPoint, it's, a little fussy about that. And here, that's what all right. And all right. Anyhow, it looks like I may have an extra space. Thank you for that, Google, when you converted it, but you can do this too. So there are 4 factors in every sale: price, exposure, presentation, and the details. I've been doing this for a while. I can't think of a better way of explaining the process. There should be a section on how's the market. So what you'd be doing here is either you would at this point show them your PDFs if it's being done online, or the printed out stuff about the the seller's thing from CAR or Altos or something like that. If you wanted to include them right here, and we go to new slide, and we want it to be, let's say, blank one, and we go to our RPR, that's not it. And we're doing, what am I doing? Los Angeles County. So I copy this, wrong one. Oh, I did that twice now. I don't know why. Where's RPR? Here we go. So we would go here, share, more, copy, and then just go back and paste it in here. And notice how it kind of formatted exactly the way I would want it, right? And I could pop in a few of them. If I wanted to do it within the program, I would be creating slides. If I want to do it outside using 8.5 by 11, I would use the other reports. The next 2 is about pricing strategies. Now, when I'm doing this, I always tell people there's 3 ways to price your property. One way is we're having the sale. And in the having a sale, it means that we deliberately price your property below what the competition is, which is more likely to create a frenzy. There'll be more interest. The open houses will look like anthills as people are crawling over each other, and we're more likely to get multiple offers, and offers that have better terms, like less or no contingencies. A second way to price a property is called the price is right. And this is where we study all the numbers and statistics, and we come to a conclusion that this is the price, right? This is the value, and we list it for that, and we stick to it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And we might get 0 to 1 offer. And then there's the needle in the haystack strategy, and that's where we deliberately price it over what we think the property is likely to sell for, because you never know. Some crazy person might wander in and buy it, and we can always go down later. Isn't that right? And that, by the way, is what we call pre-expired listings. We call them pre-expired, right? Because they're less likely to sell. And then I would ask the person which of those strategies would seem most appropriate to you. They almost always say the second one, price is right. And I'm like, let me explain this again. There are 3 strategies. One of them is that we deliberately price it under what the market is, what our competition is, so that it'll create a frenzy. And I basically say the same thing a second time until they say, okay, I get it. Because there's 2 kinds of properties on the market. There are the properties that sell, and then there are the properties that other properties use to sell theirs. So if we're pricing it high, then and other people are below us, then those agents are going to be pointing at us and saying, look what a great deal ours is compared to that one. And they're going to all have to sell before ours does. So if we've got market value, if you go over market value, what it does is it lowers the number of potential buyers. And it changes the number of people that you're likely to attract. So if we go above market value 10%, it lowers the number of potential buyers 15%, even less. If we're below, we get more buyers and more buyers. That doesn't mean you have to sell it for that. It's a strategy. And when you're talking to sellers, you want to talk about price as a strategy. It's not a fixed concept. All right. There are 3 phases in selling the property. There's pre-marketing, marketing, and closing. And no, I don't want it to change. How about that? So pre-marketing generally takes 1 to 3 weeks, marketing 2 to 6 weeks, and closing 4 to 5 weeks. And this is the steps of pre-marketing. Now, even if I were in San Diego, where this isn't done as often, or LA, or Orange County, I would be explaining to the seller why they want to get inspections and reports up front. Because if you don't, you're not going to get a non-contingent offer, and the buyer is going to renegotiate the price, and it's going to end up costing you more money. And so the first thing we might do is to get a property inspection, a termite inspection, a roof inspection. If there's a pool inspection. If the property inspector says, ooh, there's issues with the foundation, get a contractor to look at the foundation. We're going to want a preliminary title report. We're going to want to fill out all the disclosures. The seller property questionnaire, the transfer disclosure statement, the agent's AVID. If it's got solar panels, the SOLAR disclosure. If it's in a trust, the trust advisory. If it's in a high fire hazard area, we want to do defensible space. You get it, all of them. And then one of the options that I always mention to sellers is that they can get a home warranty that covers the property during the listing period. And I usually have home warranty brochures. Now, home warranties, I know not everybody thinks they're great. They don't cover everything. They don't pay for everything. But this is the scenario. You don't mention it, that there's such a thing as a seller coverage, which protects the seller during the listing. The heater breaks, air conditioning breaks. Seller says, what should I do? You say, well, you're going to have to fix it. Seller's like, oh. Seller goes to work. Some coworker says, so how's the sale of your house going? The seller says, oh, well, the air conditioning just broke. And, it's going to cost $600 to fix it. And the coworker says, why don't you just call your home warranty company? When we sold our house, we had a home warranty during the listing period and it paid for stuff like that. And the seller says, oh, I didn't know about that. And the seller calls you up and says, what about our home warranty? And you say, well, we don't have one. And the seller says, what do you mean we don't have one? You never even mentioned it to me. You never even gave me an option. If you had told me that I could have done this, I would have done it. And now I have to pay all this money and it's your fault. Now, what typically happens is when I discuss it and I show the home warranty brochures, the seller says, nah, I don't want to. Then I've had this happen. The heater broke. I did not say I told you so. I did not say it. And the guy was, would this have been covered under that home warranty? Yeah. No, but hey, whatever. You understand that's a way better position to be in than being asked why you didn't mention it. Right? Why didn't you even give me the option? I would give them an option. Unless you like paying for fixing heaters and air conditioning systems. If we need to have any repairs, any cleaning, and any staging, we do that next. Once we've got it all cleaned, we're going to do photos and a virtual tour, which, by the way, there's different versions of virtual tours. There's the 3D, which costs, $600-800. There's cheaper versions, I know, but it would be for a luxury home. And KV Core will produce a virtual tour just from the photo. It'll produce a link for a virtual tour. Preparation of marketing materials, the flyers, all that. And we're going to probably look at a pricing strategy right before we put it on the market. Is it possible that from when we began this discussion, the market might have changed? And so if we fix the price, a month before, it may not match reality anymore. Move this around. All right. So, my selling strategy, I'm going to try and get you the highest price possible, make it as seamless as stress-free. Yeah. Where do buyers find the home they purchase? According to the 2023 NAR Home Buyers and Sellers Generational Trends, 51% of the buyers found the home they bought on the internet. 29% found it through their agent. Friend, relative, or neighbor, 10%. Knew the sellers, 5. Yard sign, 4. Home builder, 1. Yeah, So when we break this down, the big categories are internet marketing and real estate agents. Plus, I'm going to give you some things that you can post on your Facebook and your LinkedIn and your Threads or Instagram or TikTok or whatever you do. And some of the people might actually react to that, and that's 10%. So the marketing to the public would include, we're going to put up a yard sign, we're going to have sales brochures, a single property website. If you're saying, I don't know how to do that, KV Core will make you a single property website. EXP's Marketing Center has a little more sophisticated version, but you have to do something, whereas in KV Core, it's pretty much, it's really easy. Social media marketing, hundreds of websites. The MLS alone syndicates it to over 300. EXP syndicates it to some more. We're going to do open houses. We're going to do an email blast. Whether or not it's 4,000 or so is, if you're wondering how could I do an email blast to 4,000 plus people, there's services. One of them is called Zip Flyer, Zip Your Flyer. And for like $50, they'll send an email to every real estate agent in a particular area that announces you have a listing. Many of you have probably received those emails. Just listed, international buyers. Marketing your property. EXP has a marketing kit, which you can buy. It's a sample, which you could take with you, which looks like that. And notice it shows them a door hanger, or just listed, all of the This is what a flyer, these are samples. And yes, you can buy through EXP a package that would, you'd get a box, and in the box you'd have all the different materials that you would use. Or you could make them in KV Core and print them yourself. Or you could make them in the EXP Marketing Center and print them yourself. I don't care. Right? This is just sort of a sample page of all the different things we do. Random website, advertising, all of that. Fact versus fiction. What this is getting to is that despite what other agents might tell you, there is no secret path to marketing your property that's going to work better than everybody else's. If you're a buyer and you're serious, you have Zillow and Redfin and Homes.com and Realtor.com and maybe a couple of other sites, and you're looking at it. And if we're on the top 300 websites, and every buyer that's seriously looking to buy a home is going to know that your home is for sale. Digital marketing, this is just an extra slide. I put in a couple of them just in case you wanted virtual tours. This picture here, by the way, you can change. This is a generic one. Sometimes I would go take a picture of the house and put that there. So they'd say, oh, my house, that's my house. Right, and then the digital footprint, you're going to appear everywhere. Some of these are a little bit redundant. Over half of all the home buyers attend open houses. So we ought to do them. Now, if they say, well, we've sold homes before, and we did open houses, and the only thing that was going on is the agent was trying to find more clients. They never, trying to even sell my house. And I don't really want to, if somebody says, I don't want to do open houses, I don't argue with them. I just would skip over this. I would say that's an option. We don't have to do open houses. Don't worry about it. Once I've listed their property, then I'm going to circle back and have a discussion about open houses. Despite what you think and what your experience, the value of an open house is that it allows us to set time on the weekends where we can process a whole bunch of people, right, in groups. The alternative is one at a time looking at your house, which is more of a pain, more time consuming, more of a problem. And most buyers, there are a whole bunch of buyers that they're looking for open houses on Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, and they're going to them, and we don't want to make it difficult for them, right? We want the way for me to get you the highest price possible is for me to expose your property to the greatest number of potential buyers. Anything we cut out that would allow us to expose your property to the greatest number of potential buyers may have the effect of you not getting the highest price because we missed somebody that was willing to pay more. By the way, in a listing appointment, my explanation of this is, let's say you're buying a new coat and you go to a store and you're looking at the coats on the rack and you find one that's just the right color, the right style. It fits great when you try it on, but you look at the tag and it's more expensive than the other coats that are on the rack. You still buy it? Or do you buy the one that you don't like the color and it fits fine? Most people would buy the one that fits best. They're willing to pay more. So our job as a real estate agent is to expose your property to the greatest number of potential buyers with the goal of finding the buyer for whom your home fits best. Because that buyer will pay more than other buyers. Sure, we might sell the property anyhow to somebody, but the question is at what price? Right? More exposure means more potential buyers, which means we're more likely to find the buyer who's willing to pay the most. Now, if you're going to do a 3D virtual tour, which I would recommend if it's an expensive house, again, $600 to $800. Your mileage may vary depending on your area. But there's Matterport and there's a bunch of competitors. If you're not going to do a 3D virtual tour, delete that slide. There's a section on staging. you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. That's the line. And obviously, if you look at the example, which they've, done a good job of making it look better, staging, people walk in and they make a decision within seconds or a couple of minutes if they want to buy the house. And most people don't have a lot of imagination. So they can't picture what it would look like if it were all nice. And if you're asking me, what would the goal of getting the house ready be? My answer is, let's go look at new home subdivisions, or at least look at the pictures of the models. That's the goal. New home subdividers have spent a lot of money studying this. That's the goal. Marketing to other agents. Well, we're going to put it on the multiple listing service. We're going to put it on the agent tour, exposing it to the real estate board, and personal promotion to agents. How do you do that? There's something called reverse prospecting. How do you do that? Google it. Or ask me when you're logged into your MLS. All the MLSs have what's called reverse prospecting, which means you can identify all the real estate agents who are running searches for buyers right now that would match your property, that your property would fall into it. You can reach out to them. Now, I've mentioned here, I don't know what it looks like my size is a little off, but I don't know. 14.6, 14.5, that's all the same. So the cooperating agents, compensating cooperating agents, my suggestion is that you refer to an agent representing a buyer as a cooperating agent. And a cooperating agent is somebody who brings us a ready, willing, and able buyer who's willing to purchase your property on a price and terms that you like. I see there's a bunch of questions. People are probably just asking for copies of the slides. All right. And I would explain that despite what you read on the internet, there's never really been a standard 6% commission. I would say I've been on a lot of listing appointments, and believe me, they're negotiable. I get negotiated with often. What's changed, there is a court settlement. There was a court settlement. So much for my AI program. All right. And what's changed is we can't mention cooperating buyer agent compensation in the MLS. And that buyers and their agent have to have a representation agreement before they can tour your home. But sellers can still offer cooperating buyer agent compensation through concession. Really? So maximizing your home appeal, the role of buyer concessions. Right? This, you may not need this. That's sort of an intro slide. What are buyer concessions? These are credits. And by the way, they currently occur almost half the time, where the seller is giving the buyer a credit for closing costs, interest rate buy down, repairs, etc. And it's credited. It might be because the floors are messed up or appliances need to be replaced. Right? That's what concessions are. The benefit of you as a seller offering buyer concessions is that it's going to make your property more attractive to a greater number of buyers. It's going to incentivize agents, cooperating agents, and buyers to look at your property. It's going to make it more appealing, and you're going to stand out compared to those sellers who won't. So if you won't make a concession, if you will not cooperate with the buyers, you're probably going to get a lower sales price. It'll probably take more days on market because the buyers already have a lot of closing costs. And you're going to reduce the pool, particularly if the property is an FHA or VA price range. They're getting in on the property with a shoehorn. Right? VA borrowers don't have any money down. FHA borrowers, 3.5%. They don't have the money to pay $20,000, $10,000 in a buyer's agent compensation. Also, this says, and whether or not you have to go through all of it or not, there's a difference between retail and wholesale buyers. Retail buyers are the people who want to buy your house and move into it, right? These are oftentimes first-time buyers and they want to have their own agent and they're willing to pay more. Wholesale buyers are the grizzled investor. They don't necessarily need an agent. They know what they're doing, but they don't offer high prices. I would point out this is again, if there's resistance, that new home subdividers compensate cooperating agents 2 to 3%, but they were never members of the MLS or the Association of Realtors. They're not mentioned in the settlement. They don't have to do this, but they choose to do it because they have found that it increases the net that they make by offering cooperating agent compensation. Commercial real estate, same thing. Right? Most of them are not members of the MLS, not members of the Association of Realtors, but they still pay cooperating agent compensation. Even for sale by owners, 75% of the time will pay a buyer's agent. This is who's really paying. All the money comes from the buyer and the buyer's lender. What does the buyer have to pay? Now, this is why you would run a buyer cost analysis. So you have an idea of what a typical buyer would have to pay in all these different fees, but it's usually 2 to 5% of the loan. I would point out, now the graph I'm using went back 10 years, but I would point out when you bought your house, your interest rate was 3.5%, right? It's almost 7 right now. Right? This makes it much more difficult for buyers to be able to afford anything. When you bought your house, you paid $500,000. It's worth $950. Right? The average appreciation in California over the last 10 years has been 6.5% a year. So interest rates are up, prices are up, affordability is down. When you bought your house back in 10 years ago, about 50% of all the people in California could afford to buy a house. 50%. When you bought it, it's 17% right now. So what this means is that sometimes buyers, let me move this here because it seems to flow, are going to need help in financing their costs. Now, if you say, and I would change the numbers so that it matched whatever price range the property was on, but if you let the buyer add the amount that they're paying their agent to their offer, add it, that's a good phrase, add it to the amount they're offering and then get a concession back. In this example, you can net $780,000. If you say no, you have to pay for it outside of escrow. Well, they can't offer $800,000 anymore because they've got this extra closing cost that they have to cover. So they're going to lower the price. And by the way, they would probably lower it more than $780,000, right? Because, well, this is coming up, right? They would probably lower it more. A premise of this whole NAR settlement was that if buyers directly paid their agent, sellers would lower their price. That's a premise of the whole thing. You will charge less if you're not rolling into the price the compensation for the other agent. I included, this is called how makes a difference. If a buyer has an 80% loan, then 80% of the cooperating agent commission is financed. 90% loan, 90% is financed. If you don't let them add it to the price, then their out-of-pocket expenses are 5 to 10 times higher regarding that concession. You see, if it's $20,000 and it's an 80% loan, then the buyer only has to come up with $4,000 because 80% of the 20 is being financed. If it's a 90% loan, then they only have to come up with $2,000 because 90% is financed, or $4,000. Did I do that wrong? I've used different numbers. So if it's a $20,000, it would be $4,000 if it's an 80% and $2,000 if it's a 90%. But if you don't allow them to add it to the price, it's $20,000 over and above their down payment, over and above all their other closing costs, and you see they can't do it. Then there's a question, do you want me to help a buyer that doesn't have an agent? Now, if they say, well, sure, of course, that's multiple roles. And one of the goodies that I included here, which has the number 105, which is here someplace. This 105 is 105 things that buyer's agents do. 105 things that a buyer agent does. Why would we be showing this to a seller? By the way, there's 179 things that the selling agent does or that an agent does. Why would we show the seller all those things that the buyer's agent does? Well, that's because if you're asking me to take on the role of the buyer's agent, I've got 105 more things to do, which means you're going to have to pay me more. Right? I'm going to have, and this is part of the residential listing agreement. How much do I get paid if I just represent you as a seller, and how much if I have to represent the buyer? And I would point out that most litigation in real estate occurs when there's only one agent in the transaction. Wouldn't it be better to just have another agent? And then I would want to counsel them that when we get an offer, it's not the concession that's important, it's the net proceeds, the strength of the buyer's financing, what contingencies does the buyer have, and other terms. Now, this is about communication, what we do throughout the process, about offers to close. There's a little closing thing at the end. I'm going through this in detail to help you produce scripts later. You'll see that in the folder I've given you, some of these are information from EXP, including copies of our listing agreements and things like that. I also have a marketing plan, which discusses all the different things. Here's pre-marketing, marketing to the public, marketing to agents. I even put in a section on the concessions. You would put in your DRE number, but you could use it the way it is with the Michael Devlin Group. But this is also something that you can make a copy of. All right, and I'm going to make a version of the slides that's 8.5 by 11, and you could use some of this other stuff as well. Any questions about this so far? Monica says she's used a version and she liked it. Some people say, thank you for putting it together. Some people think it's great. Usually it's the same people.
Michael, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. You do so much for us, and I appreciate it. I'm so emotional now to see this presentation because I was thinking to update the presentation, the older version that I used to use, but you did it for us. So thank you. This is awesome.
That's what comes from not having a social life,
You are the El Jefe.
I have to look that up. All right. So tomorrow's Wednesday. Tomorrow I'm actually doing something for Atomic Habits at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is, if you don't know, it's in the training. There's a link to it. And then at 12:30, I'm going to be kind of talking about the same subject, which is script practice. And then Thursday, we're going to talk about how to do a seller's net sheet and how to do a buyer's cost analysis. And I'm having Brandon from Chicago Title join, and all the different ways that could be used. And you need to be good enough at this that you can do it in front of people while they're watching you. Any other questions? Are we good?
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.